Today we're here in the historic Gastown district in Vancouver at the beautiful Chambar restaurant. They opened up early for us. They're celebrating 20 years this year. So come check out Chambar. Joining me today is someone who's truly inspiring. He is a very well-connected, community-focused individual, really committed to making social impact and making a positive difference in the community. He holds many titles. I don't even know where to begin. Mark Busse, ladies and gentlemen, and I was interested in getting Mark on the show because I truly believe he is what our show is all about, individuals who are making a positive impact in our communities. When I first spoke to Mark, I called him. He happened to be officiating a wedding. Now that is one of his many titles. He is also does brand work. He sits on many different boards, and he is just committed to bringing people together. Mark Busse, thank you so much for waking up early. I know that is not a big feat for you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
So tell us the Mark Busse story. We're here to share the Mark Busse story. Now, Creative Mornings is something that came down much later. Your background is in design, branding, consulting.
And business, and it's interesting. I've been struggling in the last few years since I stepped away from dedicated full-time leadership roles in organizations to, explore the consulting space, right, the freelance space. I'm quite fortunate. In fact, I'm terribly privileged in the opportunities, the financial situation, the life that I've been given. That for the last few years, sort of like mid-COVID, when that started to all wind down and I started getting out there, I assumed a stance that was really steeped in curiosity and my own obsession with creativity and the role and the skills that I bring in that. And recently a friend finally put a name on it, a word that I hadn't thought about and never identified with, but it is a curious way to think about this, both from the perspective of, like people say, Mark, what do you do? What's your I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and this. Well, there's a word in French, to be a flâneur.
I love that word.
And that's not a title people use. Nobody says, hi, I'm a flâneur. But it means essentially a number of things. But in the meaning that makes most sense to me is I'm sauntering in sort of a strolling capacity from opportunity and relationship to relationship, with no other purpose other than to find the good in it, to just be open, and that's working. And so I love the work I do, and the fact that I can pump the brakes and say I'm not available now for a week. I'm doing something with my mom, or spending time with friends, or marrying a couple, writing a ceremony for a wedding, or I'm doing a brand strategy for an organization, or I'm on a nonprofit board trying to solve leadership problems.
It sounds like you're really on purpose. And from our coffee chat before meeting today, like
that
about
was
a
a
month
fun coffee chat.
You're
good at that.
You're great at that. Vancouver sometimes gets a bad rep, but individuals like yourself, Mark, I met Mark and he was like, okay, where are you filming? Let me help you with that. Who else do you need? Have you had this person on the show? Like, you are one of those people. I think I was speaking to Nicholas on TELUS, and I said, Mark has a very East Coast, New York kind of mentality. Like,
cool.
You're very like, get to the point. How can I help you? Who can I introduce you to? Have you always been like this, Mark?
I'm from southern Manitoba. I was born and raised until my childhood. We moved from a little town in the prairies out to Richmond, and then Vancouver for the last 30 years or so. But I think I come from a family that's very sort of animated, unvarnished would be one way to describe some of my relatives. Just straight shooting prairie people. And although I don't think I would ever want to live in Manitoba again, I like being from that kind of culture, and I like bringing that. I also grew up, in and around church and that sort of version of community. And so, when people learn that about me, at first blush, sometimes people will describe me as very urban, and I'm very urban. I've chosen to be an urban dweller, and I guess I have one of those careers. But I'm just a guy who wants to help you load hay bales onto the truck. Really, is what it comes down to. Or if the neighbor is in trouble, go help. And so I bring that to I just can't. That's my programming, right? That's where I come from, and I like it, and I enjoy being generous and intentional about that energy and bringing it to others. Someone once said I have a masterful relationship with limbic energy, which is
that's a great way.
Yeah, I still don't exactly know what that means. So maybe in the comments, if you could just help me figure out what that means. But there's the limbic brain, right? And just the idea that I think that I have the capacity, and I have seen demonstrated that you have it too. We have this ability, I think, to use our own optimism and our own energy and our own body language and tone and words and all of it to lift other people's energy with us towards a direction that matters, or in a way that is helpful.
Thank you for saying that. And that was one of the things that I came out of our first conversation was I felt you were very service-minded.
I try to be.
Because, sometimes someone can do it for the title or whatnot, and I feel like perhaps the stage you're at in your career, and perhaps you've been like this most of your life, there seems to be this energy, this vibe that I'm getting. How can we all lift together and bring this positive energy into our community, into our city, this warmth? So let's backtrack a bit. You started in design and quite accomplished. You founded the industrial brand, and transitioning from that to now being involved with Creative Mornings Vancouver, how did that transition happen?
Well, there were other moments along the way. Prior to my firm, I worked in the design production realm. My education is one that I don't recommend anyone attempt. It was a fine art education mixed with business management and administration, which served me very well once I became an entrepreneur, and now serves me very well as somebody who brings creativity to my coaching, my consulting, and that sort of work, because I can sit with the highest, most experienced C-suite leaders and tuck into their life and into their work realities with some benefit.
You can get to the heart of the matter really fast.
I really can.
That's a natural gift. That's not something that can be taught.
Yeah, and it's funny when I'm coaching. I had a really interesting session yesterday. So often, as I listen, and my role as I view it as a coach is not so much to opine or direct or suggest anything to these folks, but to really listen to what's really going on underneath. And there was a moment where I said, I'm hearing you say this, but I think what might be going on is this. Do you think that this might be what's happening? And he just was like, I hadn't thought of that.
And this is something that you're doing on their brand organization,
In this
or
particular,
both personal and brand?
This is since we'll get back to the Creative Morning story, but it's all related. But during my time running my own firm as managing partner, a lot of the time wasn't necessarily just about brand, although that was our offering there, but it was culture and systems and leadership and communication and clarity on values. There's so much of that stuff. Like folks would often confuse brand with a logo. We weren't logo designers. We were brand builders. From the name and the language and the way it shows up and it's expressed in the behaviors and how you make decisions, all that stuff related to that. So that is very much what I consult others on now. What occurred with Creative Mornings was that in serving my own firm and my own clientele, and then I took a leadership position in the design sector and ended up the president of the association, I began to realize that for me anyway, and I want to confess something, because you're being very generous and I really appreciate your kindness. And I'm used to, and I can accept compliments, I'm okay with it, I'm good, I'm okay. But while it's true that I am very service oriented, and I am the kind of person that if you sat with me, even the first time we meet, I'm likely to end with, you know, some request or a question about how I can be in service. That is really common in my style. You had a friend of ours on mine, Chambar. He always had, didn't you interview?
I haven't
you know
yet.
him, but you know him.
I know him.
You know
I contacted him in December, and he was on his way to London.
Got it.
I'm going to be bringing him on the
You'll
show.
note
Yes.
that every time you meet with someone like him, I love that his generosity too. He always ends with, "Now how can I help? Before we leave, I want to know how I can help." Super great. So anyway, so I bring that, yes, but my confession is this, and this will segue into the Creative Morning story. You know, there was a period of time where I was very intent, as are lots of entrepreneurs and leaders in business, on taking actions, doing things, investing my time in ways that would benefit me and my brand and my revenue stream, let's say.
And I think that has, sorry to
No.
interject there, I do think that does need to perhaps, it happens in the beginning.
Of course.
I know even for myself, for me, I have to sometimes take a step back and be like, what am I doing? What is the reason behind I'm doing this? If it's just for ego,
Yep.
it wears off after a
Yep.
while. Or whatever recognition or outside validation you get, it does, you know, you see your name in print, okay, after 5 seconds the feeling is gone. But to really have the, as they say, play the long game,
Yep.
it needs to go to the heart of the matter, which I think it's a human thing. And you've gone past it, and now you're like, okay, how many hands can I hold? How many individuals can I connect? And I think as an outsider who's just getting to know you but familiar with your name and your work, I do see the fact that, okay, this individual got involved, started this, and not just with Creative Mornings, it's the
Oh, yeah,
other
it's
boards
the-
you,
yep.
because that is just one part of it.
Yep.
There's many different boards that you sit on, the dinners that you're doing, the individuals you're connecting, and, you know, just welcoming people like me who you just met. How can I help you?
Yep.
Let me go right ahead. Like, that's not just lip service. So I do just want to say that.
We're on the same page. The Creative Morning story that falls into that also should maybe be prefaced to say it looks at the outside and is legitimately, I mean, it's all volunteer, it's a sort of gift economy endeavor. It's all done with generous donations and investments from organizations and people to make us do this. If anyone doesn't know what we're talking about, essentially for the last, we're in our 13th year, all around the world, once a month, gatherings happen, and ours are in the neighborhood of 150 to 200 people, get fed a free breakfast, a live musical performance, and an extraordinary hour of conversation and listening to some successful person who has used and has wrestled with and employed creativity in their career, and they're willing enough to stand on stage and share that in a really generous, authentic, vulnerable way. And that's a real gift. But I don't want anybody to mistake my motivation. I do believe, and I will always defend, anyway, I really believe that Creative Mornings and gatherings like Creative Mornings, there are others where the ego is not the priority, where the transaction is not the priority, where the profit is not the priority in the monetary sense. That is really good for society. It's really good. I often will say, you know, the combination, and these are, I do like alliteration, I am a branding person, but conversation, connection, and community increases the capacity of the creative economy. And it's actually also, to add another C word, it's also really good for the culture of our city. It's really good for the culture of our city. However, make no mistake, it is very profitable for me. Not financially, by any means, but I am a creative professional, and not only have I had to use creativity in my career and my life, but it is what I sell. Like what I mean is, I help others to find creativity in their lives.
That must be so much more enriching, because when you can connect, so for example, my camera operator Julian, we worked together on a show that I did like over a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now whenever someone contacts me and they're like, hey, we may have our own person, but there's something about when you're like, hey, why don't I refer this individual or that person I know that the way it warms up your heart, and the fact that hundreds of people, you're giving people a platform. The reason why I even thought of you is I saw our mutual friend Eric Sadie post about, and I was like, the individual who's in charge of this, I need that person on my show, and I want to talk about. And when we got connected, I had no idea you had
all this other stuff.
Yes, it's like that's not just the only thing, and that to me that is a story. So that's why I wanted to bring you on the show and really highlight you, because I think that's quite selfless. And I also understand when you're saying that, yes, it's doing something for you. Of course, you get all the warmth back, and I'm sure the connections that are happening, or the creative projects people are working together on. So tell our individuals. So this started in 2010 in Vancouver. You started the Canadian chapter of Creative Mornings Vancouver. But this is something that happens around the world in the mornings. And before this, you were involved in another group organization like this. And tell me, like, some of the lives that you've seen impacted. Some of the connections you've seen happen through Creative Mornings over the last decade or so.
Sure. So Creative Mornings goes back, I think we're in our 15th or 16th year now globally. My colleague and friend Tina Roth-Eisenberg was a host of something called Like Minded that I still host in Vancouver, and I have in this location numerous times. And it was the idea that conversation over coffee is enough. We don't need to have all the formalities and the barriers and right? Just pour a good cup of coffee, meet somebody you don't know, and have a conversation. And that evolved in New York.
And that's a free event, Mark?
Totally free. Totally
How
free.
come? Like,
I don't know.
I've never heard it.
Google me. And she was my counterpart in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And she decided that while that still had a lot of merit and was wonderful, so she comes from the graphic design world, and so many people in New York wanted to see the inside of studios, wanted to meet the personalities, and wanted to see their work and hear their stories. And so she decided to pivot and change that, but she wanted to go more broadly than just graphic design, or that right? People watching here would be like, I don't want to go to an event for graphic designers. Well, I was the president of graphic design, and I was seeking something else. Like, there has to be a bigger role here. We have to be able to be of service in a bigger way. And she started to host what she called Creative Mornings. Same format has really not changed.
I love the name.
It's so good. It's so clear. And I love that when I talk to people, there's a very famous Canadian artist who lives in Vancouver who will not be named. But we're friends, and I've invited him many times. He's famous. And he's like, Mark, I'll do Creative Mornings when you do it at night with cocktails. I'm like, we have done evening things. But anyway, the idea grew. And of course, all of a sudden, for her, it's always about face-to-face connections and love. It's about love. Everything's about love. And so as each chapter came online, these people were like, holy man, this is a highly generous act to bring people together. And the benefit that I was talking about earlier that is relevant for anybody watching this is that how does one define creativity? If creativity is indeed something all humans have the capacity for, some would say it's God's gift, right? Depending on whatever your spiritual beliefs are, that it is one of the magical things that is the human spirit. Okay, but how do we enact it? What do we do? What are the things we can put in motion? If we're parenting, or in a job or feel stuck in, or whatever the thing is that feels like a block, how do we apply this idea of creativity, of new ideas to solve problems in our lives? Creative Mornings is actually a beautiful example of all of it. Uncomfortable new information, things you may not know about. So curiosity, community, collaboration, the capacity to be with others, to find the cameraman that you wouldn't have known otherwise, to solve, all these things help. Conversation, getting good at discussing, asking good questions, and being conversation, which is dialogue is a big part of what we do. So if you're a burning, well, actually, maybe especially if you're a burning introvert and you really, really dislike mornings and being in a conversation with somebody, you should come. Right? Lead into that. It's wonderful. And so it's really, it became a lovely, lovely, I had been a guest speaker in New York, and she had called Tina, the founder, and said, oh my gosh, Mark, something's happening where people are putting their hands up to do this, voluntary, no one's paid. No speaker's been paid in the history of Creative Mornings, 15 years. Speakers like Moby and, anyway. And she said, and I'll never forget, it was a phone call, I think, or maybe back then we were using maybe Skype. Skype still exists. Does it still exist?
Does anyone use Skype?
Is that Microsoft Teams now? I think they bought Skype. Anyway, and she said, here's the thing. The Olympics was coming. It was 2009, early 2010. So everyone in the world, in particular New York, was paying attention to what's going on in Vancouver. Yeah. And she said, all of these people, there were 100 people who had asked them to start chapters, but they were all in Toronto and Montreal. And she didn't know them, she knew me. And so I was like, okay, let's do this. On the condition that it is, indeed not transactional, really based on community and dialogue. And I put together a team, and I'll tell you.
And that's a big task.
Oh, it's a big task. And I think 3 or 4 of that original team are still going with me today.
Wow.
Yep. So the question you had, you concluded with what the lives you have touched. So let me give you just a couple of examples. One from a while ago, and one very recent. One story, we were hosting one of our gatherings, and this fellow who had come a couple of times, and was, I forget, maybe a writer? I think he was a writer. And anyway, he had a board. He wore a sandwich board.
Okay.
That said,
dude with a sign.
Yeah, very clever writing on it,
yeah.
And his contact information saying I'm available. And he came and he mingled through the crowd during breakfast and wore the whole thing the whole damn time. And
very committed.
By the time he left, he'd been hired and had a job.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
One of my volunteers was a shy immigrant, a designer. She was she was the kind of person that would hide in the shadow after setup and all of the things were done, and the volunteers kind of stay in the back corners, and she'd be over there and she'd be looking across at our cameraman, who was this handsome Asian fellow. Whoa, just like our cameraman today, and for months worked up the nerve to talk to him. And there was a photograph that he had taken at one of our events that she didn't particularly like of her. It wasn't her most flattering shot. And so she, here it is, here's my moment. And she went over to him and said, hi, I know we haven't really gotten to know each other yet so much, but that photo, could you take that one down? I don't really like it, here's why, They're now married and have a beautiful family together, children together.
Were you the wedding officiant? Is this how that started?
No, but I can tell that if you're interested. But my more recent story, so that was some years ago, but my more recent story, and this is whereas I want people to come to Creative Mornings from all walks of life, because they will go home lifted up. They will go home with new energy, new perspective, new context. Discomfort that is the best kind of discomfort. I don't understand. This is so interesting. How do these people do this stuff?
So Creative Mornings takes place the first Friday?
Every month.
And the location, and tell us how can people come? What
Yep.
is the system of
If you
getting
go to creativemornings.com and find Vancouver,
Mhm.
we always keep it. Some chapters move it around their city, and I like the idea of that, but it's just so much, we're just so comfortable and welcome, and it's just so lovely to be on the edge of Gastown here at the SFU.
SFU.
Yeah,
That's when I came. The only time I've been was like
there.
almost a decade
We're
ago.
still there.
Yes.
I love it. Were you downstairs or upstairs?
Ah.
It doesn't matter. We're now on the second floor in their World Arts Center. They're so generous. Props, shout out to SFU and TELUS and so many of our supporters who help make those happen. But yeah, it's easy. First Friday, you show up, you register online. It's free.
And how does it work? Because you were mentioning the ticket system. It's like a lottery system. How does it work?
Not these days. Since
Okay.
COVID, when COVID was happening, we had before COVID, it was really a challenge. We have tens of thousands of active followers just in Metro Vancouver. So our mailing list is massive. And so we would have hundreds of people on the waiting list that just couldn't fit in the room. Because we've always kind of avoided, we don't want to, we did the fill the theater version a few times. It lacks the intimacy, the human aspect, the conversational aspect, the intimacy of under 200 people, where people can, and we always have folding chairs, so people can spin around and have a conversation about what the speaker said and formulate
really
ideas.
Connect with individuals.
Really connect with each other. And like I
Yeah.
said, dialogue's a really important part of this. And then when we do the Q&A, I host and moderate a conversation and play the Merv Griffin character, although no one knows who Merv Griffin is anymore.
I
Anyway,
don't.
I'm old. And who would be Oprah? I'm Oprah.
Okay,
There we go.
yay!
And then the dialogue is so much more rich and so much more interesting.
How do you pick who's going to be the speaker? What is that? What sort of kind? I saw Biff Naked.
Yep, I have a committee. People have been with me for a long time. Technically, I'm the hammer, but we do this. We have a rubric. Each year, we pick a thematic focus. It's 3 tiers of themes, essentially, is the rubric. For us this year, 2024, is about celebrating people who, coming out of COVID, have been really turning Vancouver into a creative city again. Like, what does that look like? What are people who are doing really interesting creative stuff in the city? Another aspect thematically is, of course, and will always be creativity. Do they have a story about creativity? So we'll ask them, are you willing to share your own journey in a vulnerable way? What would the gift be for the audience? What gift are you going to give them?
It's sort of like a TED Talk, but on a monthly basis. But better. Better! You're like, okay, never mind. I take that back.
Ted's great. I mean, Ted was great. I don't know. I've lost the plot. I don't know if people are still obsessing over Ted. And there's other versions of the talks, not just to pick on them, that to me seem too formulaic, too ego-driven, and not interactive and not humble. This is a community thing. Yeah, we film them. Yes, you can see them online or on TELUS. But really, you want to be in the room. You want to be in the room. And thirdly, to finish my thought about how we pick the speakers, though, the New York office has a team that runs the global. We're now in 60 cities or something, 70 countries around the world, something like that. Yeah, it's a big deal. Every month there's a different sub-theme. So this month, for example, the theme was, other than creativity, was
globally.
Every chapter
Okay.
gets, in whatever language, whatever culture they are, like this. So this month the theme was perspective, and so that's great. So we have this massive database of these people who have all said, I'd be willing to speak. We get a lot of people asking. We get a lot of PR people. You know, I'll tell you a secret. You want a secret? If I get an email from a PR comms person saying, or an agent, oh man, I know this woman. She's a TV host. She's gorgeous. She's got so much to say, and she should be a speaker on your stage. If that came from your representative and not you, the odds are very low you're ever going to access. Even though that we don't dismiss it, we'll look at it, but that is the wrong motivation. We would much rather be with somebody who actually would be surprised, like, really? You think I have something valuable to say to the community? That's generous of you.
Mhm.
So, this is
It's interesting because
our rubric.
but even for me, like on the show, I prefer, like I get a lot of pitches as well,
I bet you do.
and I've had some people be like, "Are you sure you want to?" I don't know if I have anything to say.
That's
And
who you want to show.
Yes.
That's who you want to show.
Versus like.
I'll tell you another thing too.
Because then I'm getting, again, to the heart of the matter, getting to their humanity, getting to their core, and really then it's not about a show. It's more about, I've had a lot of actors on the show, which I love. I'm an actor as well. I love connecting with artists and actors and creatives, but something sort of pivoted inside for me. Like I was mentioning off camera, health and wellness is something that is truly important to me, being in my 40s now, and longevity and vitality, biohacking, like all that stuff I'm really passionate about. And then community, because I was living in Paris for a couple of years and really connected to the expat community there, and I came back to Vancouver, and I've talked about this on the show often. I had a bit of a reverse culture shock, and then also I missed how much the fashion and expat community, like, and media was very connected, and I was longing for that here.
Mm-hmm.
And once I got this platform, like last year, like this being the second show, I wanted now more than ever to connect with individuals like yourself who are wanting to create communities in here, and how can we get inspired, how can we empower each other. And those are the stories that I'm interested in sharing, because I think those are like the heroes, the unsung heroes in the back who are doing all this work, you know, all the organizing, and because you're not just taking care of the Vancouver part, you're taking care of the Canada part.
Yeah, there's a funny thing. So I'm a bit of a raging feminist, and over the years have become so much more aware of the positive role that I can play in giving others opportunities. So, you know, in terms of diversity and representation and gender balance, we now have all of these rules, Mark's rules around how it goes. I will never host 2 months in a row. It's a leadership development engine as far as I'm concerned. And if
I love that leadership development engine.
These young people that have been so generous and committed to volunteering, finding a way. Think about this in a practical way too, because some people are like, wait a second, how am I going to go, you know, on a Friday morning and spend 2 hours on a work day? These are folks who have, and it's not a complicated argument. They have gone to their employers and they have structured their lives such that people around them understand that it is in their own best interests to let this young employee or whatever spend some of their week, some of their time, and 2 hours on one day to come into work late, and they bring so much with them as a result of this endeavor, right? So to expose them to public speaking and to organization and to leadership is important to me. Also, if we have a male speaker, I don't want another white dude on stage as the host. So I will get out of the way and we will put someone else on there. One of the things in terms of speakers, as we've figured out how to blend that too, if you look back, you'll note quite a curate, young and old, brown and white, tall and short, like tall and short, that's not what we're going to do. But like we're constantly trying to make sure that we're representing the culture and the society that we do live in, but we want to be represented in how we talk about this topic. And one of the things I've learned, I think you and I talked about this over coffee, when if I were to approach him, for example, and say, hey, you're somewhat noted for your success in this realm, would you like to come and share your story on stage? My observation, my hot dog, absolutely yes.
Yeah.
You betcha.
Yeah.
I'll do it. Good for my career. You know, good ego, feels good. People want to hear what I have to say. But if I went to you and I said, I would like you to come and speak to this audience with potentially a $2 million viewership globally, you being not a male identified person, female identified person, it's more like 85%. By that I mean I've noticed that certain individuals, females in particular, often, unless they are absolutely positively sure that they have authority on the topic, they won't take the stage. And so we're trying to break that a bit. Like, enough of that, enough of you, more of this. Let's just get everybody to share. We're all in this together. It's all a big mess. Come on. Stop it. Stop it. Stop showing off. Stop with your lines on your CV. Be vulnerable. Tell the truth, and then let's talk about it.
That hits a spot for me, and it does make me emotional, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Of course.
We were discussing this, that, you know, if there is a table of individuals, you know, different backgrounds, men, women, non-binary, everyone, you know, when it comes to women to speak up, women always go later.
Yeah.
You know, and I can say that for myself. Like, it's fascinating. Like, individuals even ask me, like, I've emceed events with like 5,000, 10,000 people in the audience, and people will be like, you seem so confident. I'm like, dude, every time I'm shaking, every time I'm nervous, I drink my coffee and I'm like, okay, I tell like the little girl inside of me that I believe in you. Like, you can do this. I have to do that mirror talk. I have to, you know, there's the what you see on social media, but then also the reality of it's, you know, 100 years ago or 50 years ago or even 20 years ago, I don't know if I would be sitting here having a show funded and sharing and talking so openly about the things we are talking about today. So someone said to me, a few people have said this to me, they're like, you use the word blessed a lot, or grateful a lot.
Blessed.
Yeah. But the thing is,
You're blessed.
I do feel blessed because I was not born in this country.
Yeah.
And for me, as a woman of color, as a South Asian woman of Pakistani origin, to be living in Canada, to have these opportunities, to have these conversations, to sit down with individuals like yourself, to film this. When I came to this country 24 years ago in February, so we filmed on February 5th, the star of CBC's #1 show, the lead, along with CBC and Lark Productions, and everyone came to my place. Julian was there. I was kind of having a little bit of a freak out before people arrived. But it meant so much to me because I remember when I came to this country, I didn't see individuals like myself 24 years ago.
Yeah, of course.
And now that is changing. And I'm also very mindful and aware that who I'm bringing on the show and the conversations that I'm having. So to hear that,
it matters, doesn't it?
It really, really does, because subconsciously when people are watching, then we see, yes, that story that Mark told, what he is passionate about, that is important, because we're highlighting whether it is a show that is going across the world or even just a network, even just a community show. Like, every little bit, it makes a difference. And then, you know, it's just a little drop, but the little drop is the ocean.
Also, I think in another way that I define the profit, the value of this effort, because bear in mind, again, while I am well paid for lots of things in my life, this is not one of them. Paid financially, but I am remunerated with this wonderful reward. One of the things that has, since day one, since the very first grant application or description that I wrote up to describe why we would bring Creative Mornings to Canada, was the benefit to the creative economy, right? What does that mean? And so I know I sit on some boards, as you mentioned, and we work in the creative and arts and culture space. One of the things that, for some reason, as you alluded to or mentioned earlier, Vancouver has a bad rap. There are things about the Vancouver culture, the way that we show up for each other, or don't show up for each other, and become siloed and blocked off and separated, gets in the way of really powerful collaborations, and art and success and business doesn't get done. So one of the things that I love about Creative Mornings is it is a venue, it is a tool to create a constellation where the hub and all of these folks, or where the sun and all of these stars get connected. And I'm thinking of a recent example. We chose to highlight and invited the amazing, generous, talented, extraordinary young woman, Jolene Mitten, who is the founder of Indigenous Fashion Week, the world's first Indigenous modeling agency. Anyway, other things, basketball.
Who I want to bring on my show.
Well,
I modeled with her like 10 years ago.
So that would be easy to do. Because of Creative Mornings, I could help do that, because maybe you wouldn't know how to get a hold of her, because she's hard to get a hold of. She was the Creative Mornings speaker recently, a few months ago.
And that's when I saw her. Like
Is it?
Yes,
Oh.
yes. I was like,
Oh, that's cool. Anyway,
I need to bring whoever is in charge on my
while
show.
she was on stage, she made a comment to the audience. Someone had asked her a question about unfulfilled dreams or what her vision included, and she said, well, like, we have some incredible talent in the fashion realm in Vancouver. Sadly, as typical of Vancouver, not well known here, but doing well elsewhere, and I want to collaborate with them. And I'm getting opportunities. But then some of the big ones I just can't access. For example, we tried to get to do a collaboration with John Fluvog, with Fluvog Shoes, and it was a no-go. Like, just nothing happened, and that's too bad. And I went, wait, stop. John Fluvog, whom I know and would call a friend, is an alumni of Creative Mornings. I can text him right now. Why don't we try again? And she's like, oh my God, I mean, it'd be great, but I'm not holding my breath or whatever. Well, last week they each texted me thank yous and a photo of the two of them at the lunch they went to, where they've come to open a conversation about a collaborative project.
And you were the catalyst.
That is so gratifying, like amazing to be able to take these two people together, and you're in the same city, you're both drivers with talent, doing excellent things in your own, and there's overlap there. That's fashion. She's in Fashion Week. They should have an Indigenous shoe collection, or the official shoe provider for Fashion Week. That's cool. That is a really fun and beneficial way, I think, of serving my community and my city. If more people make more money and get more opportunities because they've come to our events,
and you're fostering all these connections, and it's slowly moving. It's like, I want to say underground, but it's not underground. It's like you're helping weave all these connections, and to be an artist, the fact that I didn't even know about Like Mind, and it really helped that I love social media. There's times that I do need to take some time away from it, but thanks to social media, I made that post, and all these people started tagging you.
Yeah, I got buried with these. Hey, Mark, you should meet this woman.
She's looking for you.
Yeah, who's this crazy woman?
So tell us about. I know we've talked quite a bit about Creative Mornings, and I will circle back to that. But I want to hear about some of the other ways that you're being of service in the community here in Vancouver.
You asked about officiating.
Yes. That is so cool to be present for these individuals' most special day.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I took that phone call from you, I was like, wow, this guy must have so much like love energy around him. Because you're there on their special day. Like, what inspired you to even do that? To become a wedding officiant?
That in particular. Okay, look. I don't like when people say look.
I
retract. Look. Here is the thing. Over time, and I actually remember the day. I remember what happened. I remember what someone said to me. I remember the day that I realized, wow, the gap in my skill set that's keeping me from the thing that I think I may be most talented at doing is hosting. It's being a convener. It's understanding all the nuance of facilitation, of how to ask really good questions, of how to construct and hold a space, of how to bring people together and bring heat or work with complexity or dialogue. And that is where my career, whenever that actually accidentally worked out well, it is where the success happened. And so I started to retool. This is 15 years ago. I started to retool. It led me away from my practice into leadership roles elsewhere to become a flaneur. And along the way, I would start hosting more and more stuff. And there is a tension there because I feel sometimes like the person who wants most to be on stage with the microphone and the spotlight on them is the person I'm least attracted to. That often there's a little bit too much, and yet you're like me. You reluctantly will go on stage to play that role. You've learned how to quiet the introvert, tap into that extroverted energy, and be generous in front of others. So it took me a while to figure that out, but apparently I'm pretty good at it. You put a microphone in front of me, as long as I'm prepared and I understand the purpose, meaning, and shape of this gathering, I can do a pretty good job of hosting others through experiences. And so I would get an invitation here or there, like, could you MC our this, or could you host this thing? Sure. And I never really wanted to make that a career choice, but absolutely I could do this.
You're just a people's person, and people can tell
For sure.
you can talk in front of an audience.
And I viewed it, and still in particular to officiating, view it as a creative act. It is a creative design type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
There are questions I ask, I end up with a brief, a clear understanding of the project. I compose original material as content, I refine it and ideate that, and then I deliver that as a product for them. So it's just a version of what I've always done. And so I used to teach for years. I taught design here at one of the universities here in Vancouver, and one of my students who was a favorite, and we became friends after he graduated, he moved back down to California where he lived, called and said, we would like you to come and officiate our wedding. And through some friends, was introduced to this. In America, apologies to all of my American friends. In America, in the United States of America, anybody, you go online and 40 bucks later, you sign up and you can be a member of some weird religion, and you're like, you can marry people. It's weird. It's so weird. And I found out that The Big Lebowski, the movie,
Yes.
The Big Lebowski with the dude, they have a religion, a registered nonprofit charity in the States called Dudism. I know. You can go right now to dudism.com, I think, and you too can be a ordained priest and marry people in the United States. So I did that.
Are you part of Dudism?
I am an ordained priest in the Church of Latter-day Dudes. And so I went down to California. I married my dear friends. I've done it a couple times now in the States, but as I came back, I live here. I don't live in America. And people would say, oh my God, can you do our wedding? And I'm like, I can, but I'm not legal. There really is only two ways to marry people in Canada, because we're like, a grown-up country. You have to be you can be a marriage commissioner, which is a pain in the butt. There's a long waiting list in Vancouver. It's for influencers, really, for most of the judges and lawyers and, I don't know, doctors and fancy people end up being marriage commissioners. And then you can apply. Some people do it for a career, but it's clerical. Like it's just you read a script, sign here, and you're like a lawyer. No, not interested. Also, this is not a career path for me, right? And then the other is you have to be a part of a religious organization, and you become what's called a religious representative.
Okay. Is Judaism in Canada?
Nope. I come from a religious background. I still identify as a Christian, though not really a heavily practicing believer anymore or whatever. So that wasn't really a priority for me. That wasn't a big thing. But a friend who's part of an organization said to me one day, how would you like to be a licensed officiant? I'm like, yeah, well, not really the path for me. Well, there's this, feminist, anti-homophobic, anti-xenophobic, very progressive, multi-faith, very open organization that has been for 2 decades or more operating under the CRA as a legal entity, and I would love to sponsor you to be a part of it. And an interview, an application, and a police background check, and shazam, I'm a religious representative in the Modern Ministers Association of Canada. So my mom hates it. She thinks it's blasphemy. But I have been actively marrying folks now for a couple of years. I enjoy it very much. Today, I have my laptop here. I'm going to be working on a ceremony for a couple who's dying. Both of them are dying. And so I'm going to be marrying them as one of their final wishes as their life comes to an end. so it's such again, a wonderful way to give special moments of connection and use my own creativity and be generous to others. And some people even pay me for it. Neat, hey?
That's so beautiful.
I'm a flaneur. I'm just looking for neat ways to show up for people.
And I think what I'm also getting from you is that you desire to deeply connect, like not just on the surface, but like really connect with humans, with individuals, and to be a part of their lives. And the fact that you can do that, whether helping someone with their career or coaching, like, I think it's like, this is like a little movie here. The fact that you're doing this thing on the side, this is like, I'm imagining like this movie character. Oh, this is just something I do on the side. I found that, is this a joke? Is this guy joking? I'm gonna go marry off a couple right now at English Bay.
The trick, you know who that was?
Who?
That I married?
Yeah.
That English Bay one?
Yeah.
That was Miru from Vidges. Miru has married her new sweetheart, and I got the pleasure to, I've known her for a million years. She and Vid are friends, and she also spoke at Creative Mornings. And yeah, we had a wonderful beach wedding and then beautiful lunch together. It was great. A movie.
I think it's truly fascinating, Mark. I would love to hear, you've held so many different titles. You really sound like someone who is using their gifts, talents, and the God-given talents, if someone wants to say, you're really living your purpose. Is there something that you haven't done, or a role, or a venture that you would like to try?
Let's see if I can get you an answer by digging into that purpose thing. So, one of the things that I like to do in my coaching practice is to challenge those I sit with to go through an exercise of self-examination and deep exploration into what their underlying beliefs and values are. And to push them to really kind of pressure test them with actions, not just the things we say that we a lot of times hope people would view as our character or our values or our ethics, but how we show up. And some of the things I think I shared with you, I had a mnemonic: risks. And so relationships for me have always been important and one that remains so. Integrity is crucial for me, and even my own wrestling match with integrity when I fail is okay because it's all in the pursuit of that priority for me. Service, as you pointed out, I come from service people, and I like to be in service. But the big things for me these days are the K as knowledge, and that's like curiosity, the constant pursuit of new ideas and new ways of being, and the ever-changing world, and it is changing. This is it's disorienting how fast things are changing lately. And then the last one is serenity, to find the peace and the calm amongst all, because as you can imagine, my life can be frenetic. And so what's missing for me in things that I haven't done yet, figures you'd ask a question I had. No one's ever asked me that question.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm hearing the voice in my head. I have a really active relationship with the voices in my head, and I don't mean like a person with mental illness. I mean
it's intuition.
Yep. I've learned how to identify and shut down the critics and the judges, and then listen to when I hear a voice that actually is maybe wisdom or intuition come up. And I guess the thing that I should probably say is, if I were to get run over by a bus today, I'd be okay. Are there some things that I want to do? I mean, if I could find a way, to get paid to do the work I do, and as I say this, I realize, of course, that probably actually absolutely exists. To travel and to maybe have a little bit of a maybe digital nomad lifestyle and do my coaching and consulting and move around a little bit more, that would be good. I miss, since COVID, travel has been less, and I don't mean travel, I mean like off this continent, like go to Europe and Asia and elsewhere and just really dive into other cultures. If there was a way to do it without, if I had more money than common sense, or had a really good plan like they do at Chambar, I would love to own something like Chambar, like a place where that is literally bespoke, built, designed, and operated to be in the service of bringing people together, and then adding that cultural culinary connection. See, there's the C words again. Weird. That would be something. I did study the culinary arts. I studied as a chef as a young person, worked in restaurants when I was in high school and university, and haven't since. But that's a big passion of mine. Cooking for others is a form of service that I really like. That would be something. I think the yearning and the longing feels a little bit like regret, not actual regret, but it feels similar to what regret would feel like, in that I avoided that path. I mean, I've had a great career, I've had a great life, I'm not done. But I avoided that because it became obvious to me, or my belief was, it's too hard to run a restaurant. It's too difficult to do it authentically the way I would do it, and be sustainable in any fashion. And it's difficult, and it is difficult. But like Chambar, for example, this place has all the ethics and community and culinary arts and culture and all the stuff mixed together in a way that, like, if I could do this, if they asked me to be their business partner and I had a couple $1 million to kind of, spare, I'd be totally down with that.
I feel like with you even voicing this today, and I know, I'm not sure if people know, but you're really into having gatherings and at your place, so I feel like you're doing that in your own way. And
I've even found a way to get paid for that.
Oh, bravo.
I'm now doing that as part of my consulting practice.
Bravo.
For engagement and stakeholder work and the building up of strategic priority setting for organizations. We will host dinners with and then I get to curate, because I have this constellation, I have this incredible network to cherry pick who's in that conversation, and then hire a chef friend to come in, and then they pay me, and these people
to organize
conversation over beautiful food. What?
You get to do what you love and get paid for it, and
Hello.
that's
really
what we want
good
more
dinners.
of.
They're really good.
That's what we want more of in our lives. We just have a couple more minutes to go. I would love to hear a bit more about your coaching practice, because that sounds truly fascinating. So you're working quite a bit with individuals, you were mentioning.
Yep.
So you touched on this earlier, that you look at their values, at their mission, how they're showing up in the world, and how they can really be on track with not just their goals that are more ego-based, but connecting to the heart and doing work, which is something, it's a conversation I have to have with myself often. And to be honest, I had it even last night, of being like, okay, when you go there, I had Sonia, who is on Global TV, on the show, and something she mentioned is that every time she goes on air, she imagines like this light energy encapsulating everyone who is in the newsroom, as well as everyone who is watching the show. So intentionally sending them that good energy when they're watching the news in the morning. And I was like, okay, so I've stolen that from her, and that's my mission. I sometimes forget to do it, like before we roll, but that is my intention. How can I bring more positive energy to you, to the individuals watching, but just to go beyond my egoic self and share stories for me to get inspired selfishly and to inspire others.
Right.
So I want to hear more about your coaching and how you work with individuals.
Have you ever had a coach?
I was working with a hypnotherapist who was coaching me a bit almost a decade ago.
That is in the therapy realm, and counseling. Wow.
Not so much like business focused.
Well, there's many kinds of coaches,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that it's worth respectfully giving each of them a nod, you know. But I'm not a life coach necessarily, although life, we're all living. It's all life. I'm accredited through a framework through what's called the International Coaching Federation, ICF, which means I've been through the training. I'm a master's level coach in producing results, in the sort of with a focus on executive leadership sort of stuff. And my job as a coach is really to follow the lead of the person I am sitting with.
Mm-hmm.
They set the agenda, i.e. they bring to that conversation and to the relationship and to, are we going to do 6 sessions, are we going to do this for a year, how long are we going to continue this what are your goals, what are you trying to solve? Is there, sometimes they have, often these people that I'm with are leaders with tremendous success and incredible situations, but they're stuck, or they feel like imposter syndrome has suddenly caught them off guard, or what have you. And really the coaching practice is, it's dialogic, it's really based in conversation. It's a lot of questions and listening on my part, trying to, as I said earlier, figure out what's beneath, what's underneath, what's going on, and then trying to use that limbic energy machine to raise their energy and optimism, insert some creative practice and process so that they can see, like sometimes I will use tools, tactics, or experiences to rattle them. Like, do you not see your value? Do you not see all of the incredible positive potential you have in front of you here? And unlock them for them to say, oh, maybe I should do this. I'm like, great. How will we do this? What resources do you need? Can I be your accountability partner on that, right? You can imagine if it must be, no, I know it to be because I've been that senior C-suite person. It can be lonely to be the boss. It can be lonely. And to have an incredibly confidential, totally private conversation with somebody who goes, bullshit, I'm calling you on that. That is not what's going on. Is this what's going on? Is this what I'm hearing? Could this be the thing? What might you do about this? Who do you know? What do you need to plug in to your life to solve these problems, to bring action and results? That's a lot of fun.
That's really beautiful.
And I mean, I've been solving problems at scale for a long time. So when you're sitting with somebody and it's just you and them, it's I don't want to say it's easier, but it's really effective to use dialogue to get to the heart of a problem and the potential solutions to it.
And you're bringing like this vast amount of experience from like, you know, leading these companies and Creative Mornings, sitting on the board of all these organizations. And
a lot of things seems to conspire at the same time.
Yeah, no, it's truly, truly inspiring, Mark. Like, you're a man of many talents.
Thank you.
Before I let you go, I would love to hear what inspires you.
Inspires me? I mentioned serenity. My default answer to that question is cooking for others. If especially brave people who are willing to try different things, because the ethnic cuisine for me is like, oh, it's where all the flavor lives, right? I come from the prairies. So I'm like, let's do a curry, you know, like let's get into spice. But that is...
Do you enjoy spicy food?
Oh, I have a problem with spicy food. Yeah. But when I'm in a let's say a South Asian or a Chinese or like a restaurant that has spicy cuisine, and then, you know, the invariable, you know, that unavoidable question that you get from the waiter, like, and so how spicy would you like it? And my wife and I, she's Chinese, be like the way you would like it, like spicy. And they're like, oh,
I don't trust you.
right, people. I'm like, no. Come on, I think there's something with the rush that comes with the heat and the sweat and this, but just as long as it's good, really, really good flavor. But anyway, lately I have really come, and I think honestly this has got to be something to do with the COVID experience and the changes, positive and negative, that occurred in me, and silence and reflection have become inspirational. Like to go inward, and I don't want to get all woo or weird about breathe.
This is the spot to get woo woo.
But like,
I'm all woo woo.
right, like to get grounded, to get in touch with my body, has become a way for me to find new energy and new ideas, and to recognize that if I create the space for that private conversation for myself and for the other, right? Like it's a form of prayer. Really allows me to unlock some stuff, which has been, and then if you add in a good dish of something,
Next level.
next level.
Mark Busse, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
This was
Fun.
truly,
Nice
it was truly inspiring for me, and thank you for taking us on this journey. You know, I really, really, truly enjoyed this, and thanks
Great.
for opening up and sharing your gifts with us and your gifts with the world, with Vancouver, and thank you for all the work that you do for our community. Make sure to check out Creative Mornings. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Until next time, I'm your host, Zara Duran.